What's up, you guys? So I am back with an update on the Tim Norman trial, which, in my opinion, he is losing based on these new court documents that have been filed. He is losing. And I just want to reiterate that this is my opinion. Even though I show you guys court documents and I show you things in black and white, what I'm giving you is my opinion on what I am reading. I am not saying that what I'm saying is factual. I am saying that based on the facts in these documents, this is my opinion. It's my opinion that Tim Norman is guilty, but it's also my opinion that his team is working hard. His team is working hard to try to get him off. And if he does get off, I feel like that is almost like a second violation of Andre. So I'm really hoping that he doesn't get off. But I want to show you these documents because there was a new document filed today that makes me feel like Tim Norman is losing based on the judge, based on what the judge said. Based on what the judge said, based on what the judge ordered. Now, the trial is not over. The trial is still ongoing. People did testify today. But I want to share with you these court documents. So first, when I say Tim's team is working, they started off like last week with a motion to dismiss charges. So let's take a look at that first. Now, this was filed on September 5th. I believe Monday was September 5th. All right, it says Defendant Tim Norman's renewed motion to dismiss based upon Brady violations with respect to Chris Carroll. Now, let me just pause right there. If you watch other YouTube channels, other people covering this story, you may know Chris Carroll is White Boy Chris. And White Boy Chris is the person who allegedly talked to the shooter regarding the conspiracy to harm Andre. That is how it allegedly all came together. The shooter can't actually testify that Tim told him what to do. He can't have that testimony because he was told what to do by other people. They're making this motion to dismiss all charges based on Brady violations. And Brady violations are when there's information that's withheld to the last minute, like information that could help Tim, but the prosecution is not releasing that information to Tim's defense team until the last minute. And so, like I said, they're working hard. They filed this and they said the government alleges that Mr. Norman was involved in we'll just say harm for hire involving Andre Montgomery. But the government does not claim that the admitted shooter, Travell Hill, received directions or instructions from Mr. Norman to shoot Montgomery. Rather, the government claims that Travell Hill, met with Chris Carroll, and that Chris Carroll purportedly discussed with him the shooting of Andre Montgomery. It says these audio tapes, because the testimony of Chris Carroll is on audio tapes, which I don't know how long it would take to listen to those tapes. But they said the audio tapes reveal that they are exculpatory of Mr. Norman. In other words, they defined it right here for you. In other words, they constitute Brady materials that should have been produced immediately. So it's something that could help Tim, but they're saying it was held back. That's a Brady violation. So let's just dismiss everything. All three charges, let's just dismiss it. So that was filed on September 5th. Obviously, the judge didn't approve it because, we're still having the trial. The charges were not dismissed. Then we have another filing on September 11th. This was filed into the record yesterday. And it says that it's defendant's written supplement to his oral rule motion for a judgment of acquittal. They still want to drop everything. They want to dismiss the charges first, and then they want to see, can they get Tim Norman acquitted? And they say defendant Tim Norman, by and through his attorneys, pursuant to the law, moves this court for a judgment of acquittal on counts 1, 2, and 3 of the superseding indictment because the evidence presented in the government's case in chief is insufficient to sustain convictions of Mr. Norman on these charges. So basically, they're saying at this point, the information that's been presented is not strong enough to prove Tim guilty. It's not strong enough to prove him innocent. Basically, they want an acquittal because it's not going either way. According to the defense, that's what they're saying. Now, if you ask me and if you ask the judge, the defense lives in la la land. If they really think these charges are going to be dismissed or acquitted, they really live in la la land. And like I said, that's according to the judge. The judge is not trying to hear it. He's not trying to hear the motion to dismiss. He's not trying to hear the motion to acquit. And I'm going to show you this document and I'm going to tell you why. The charges, just to review, 2 of the 3 charges against Tim Norman are for conspiracy. They're conspiracy charges: conspiracy to commit murder for hire and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and then the actual murder for hire charge. So it's a heavy weight on the government, the prosecution, to prove a conspiracy. And in this document filed on today, September 12th, Monday, September 12th, the judge discusses his opinion of whether or not there is a conspiracy. This particular order, this is an order from the judge. This is not a motion from any of the attorneys. This is an order from the judge. And what he is giving an order is about the admissibility of co-conspirator statements. Now, when you talk about co-conspirator statements, what they're trying to determine is whether the co-conspirators in this case, whether the statements they've made outside of court are hearsay or whether they're actually statements. And hearsay, again, is gossip. We talked about that in the Miss Robbie video. You can check that out. Miss Robbie was gossiping about her own son, whether he was guilty. And in this situation, the judge is making an order regarding the admissibility of co-conspirator statements. And he is saying, basically, there are things that have to be met, like requirements that have been established that have to be met in order to prove a conspiracy exists. Now, again, we're talking about conspiracy because that's the main charge against Tim Norman: conspiracy to commit murder for hire, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And so this is what has to be met. Number 1, that the conspiracy existed. Number 2, that the defendant and the declarants were members of the conspiracy. And number 3, that the declaration, meaning the statement, was made during the courts and in the furtherance of the conspiracy. And so the judge has given his order regarding whether there was a conspiracy or not. And he is saying that the prosecution, the government, so far is proving that, yes, there was a conspiracy. There was a conspiracy. There was a conspiracy. And that's why I say Tim Norman is losing. He is going down today, bro. He is going down. He is losing because the judge feels that the prosecution is proving that, yes, there was a conspiracy. So in the judge's order, he says, in the present case, the preponderance of the evidence presented to the court has established, number 1, yes, a conspiracy existed. It says, number 1, a conspiracy existed. Number 2, that the defendants and the declarants were members of the conspiracy. And number 3, the declarations were made during the course and in furtherance of the conspiracy. So it's not looking good for Tim Norman. You know, his team is working hard and they're trying to say that Tim Norman should be acquitted at this point because the evidence is not pointing either way, innocence or guilt. And the judge is like, it's looking like a conspiracy to me. He says the preponderance of the evidence has shown that the defendant, James Timothy Norman, Y.L. Yangnam, Terica Ellis, Travell Hill, Ed Chandler, and Chris Carroll were engaged in the conspiracies charged in counts 1 and 3 of the superseding indictment. And again, the counts, 2 of them have to deal with conspiracy to commit murder for hire and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. So that's why it's counts 1 and counts 3. And then the other charge is murder for hire. So the judge is not having it. Tim Norman is not going his way. The way he committed this crime, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, is through other people. He used people like pawns. And so he is not saying certain words out of his mouth directly to certain people. He's using people like pawns to relay messages to each other, and it's all like an unspoken understanding. Now, what I'm going to get into in the next video is Terica Ellis's involvement in this, because this whole thing, it doesn't work without Terica. Terica is the only person that day, the day of the murder, March 14th, she's the only person that saw Tim Norman face-to-face. She's the only person that saw Andre Montgomery face-to-face. And she's the only person that saw the shooter, Travell Hill, face-to-face. She is the one making everything happen. She is the one making everything go round. So I'm going to get into her in this next video, but I just want to let you know, it's the judge's opinion that a conspiracy did exist. Y'all, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think so far about this case, and I will continue covering it. And again, I have a list. It's a growing list of other YouTubers who are covering this case. I have it in the description box. So make sure you check them out. A lot of them are giving like firsthand accounts of what is going on in the courtroom. So make sure you check them out. As always, thanks for watching.